Starting in a tavern is a classic, but sometimes you want to spice some things up, so here are 8 ways to start your campaign that don't involve meeting in a tavern. Number 1, a wedding. A wedding has a built-in backstory for you and your players to get involved in. Why are your players there? Do they know the people getting married? Are they crashing the wedding, or are they just working the event? You should also be asking the very important question, who's getting married? Are they random people who are friends with the PCs? Are they royalty, a royal wedding? Or is this 2 ancient dragons combining their hordes? Get creative with the event. And for each one of these locations, I'm going to give you a starting quest idea. This one is just preventing disaster. The wedding planner gathers up some people, the PCs in this case, and needs their help putting out a fire. Perhaps the rings were stolen, or a group of goblins has been spotted a mile out and they are heading this way. The PCs are promised gold in exchange for their help, and we're off to the races. Usually if the wedding itself doesn't lead into the next quest, I will just have the wedding planner recommend the party go and meet one of their friends. They pay well for services that the party just provided, and the group really has a knack for handling these tough problems. But the PCs can still stay dressed up for the next starting location, a courtroom. Once again, this is a location that has a built-in backstory. For this campaign start, I usually begin right away with the judge reading out the individual sentences of all the party members and handing out a verdict. And this is a great way to introduce the characters and their perceived backstory without the players just saying, I'm an elf barbarian and this is my backstory to the rest of the players. This opening feels a lot more natural. There's also mystery immediately there. Did you commit the crime that you are accused of doing? And if so, why? And from here we can usually break into one of 2 starting quests. The first is a good old-fashioned jailbreak. Of course, this means session 1 is them trying to get out of jail, escape the prison wagon, or just make it to safety before getting hanged. The second option might be a little bit more interesting though. It involves the prosecutor giving a plea deal to the players. Now, if you don't know what a plea deal is, it is essentially the prosecution cutting a deal with the defendant, and in this case your PC, for a shorter or reduced sentence. In this case, the plea deal might be something as simple as, hey, if you go out and you complete 5 monster hunting contracts, we will drop the charges. It's not a bad deal, and now you have an excuse to throw out all kinds of fun monster encounters at the players. One week you're fighting a horde of ghouls, and the next week you're fighting a boulette. The variety that you can instantly put into your campaign with this opening is insane. But now, starting location number 3, a funeral. While a wedding is the beginning of a new life, a funeral is the end of one. I think a lot of the appeal around this starting location revolves around the person who died. We're given the time and the narrative coupons to really make this NPC important in our campaign. Plus, we're given the opportunity to introduce a web of NPCs and other characters who knew the individual that died. As DMs, we're given so much freedom, but also the players are given a lot with this opening. We're asking questions of the PCs like, why are you here? What is your connection to this person? How did they impact your life, etc. We're giving the players a seed to help build their backstory because it's very difficult to build backstories in a vacuum when it's just a blank page. But if you give just one NPC something for the players to build off of, it makes the process flow that much quicker. And if the PCs have a connection to this one central character, it makes it easier for them to come together as a party. They have something to mutually build around. And the starting mission here is very simple. I call it Execute the Will. An NPC, the executor of the dead person's will, approaches the player characters and asks for help. The deceased left instructions upon their death. Perhaps they left something in a dungeon they created in life, or there might be a family heirloom kept in a bank vault in the Underdark. Whatever the case, they need the party's help to fulfill the dead person's final request. If a player character knew the deceased, this might be a requirement to get their cut of the will. And if a PC did not know the deceased, there could just be a nice sum of gold involved for the completion of this mission. This is a particular favorite starting point of mine in campaigns that revolve around a central mystery. If the deceased person died of foul play or was connected to the larger mystery at hand, this gives the players a great jumping in point to the overall campaign. At the funeral, you can start setting up all the clues necessary for the players to unravel the mystery that you're setting out before them. So far, we've talked about starts with a built-in backstory, but how will you keep all this information organized? Sometimes it can feel like you're drowning in a lake made of your own ideas, but that's where my friends at LoreFrog come in. LoreFrog is a simple, easy-to-use, interconnected DM note-taking application. With this software, you can easily cross-link locations, NPCs, world history, and even campaigns across a linked universe. LoreFrog even provides you with free campaign ideas on their website. This software is simple to use even for the newest DMs. The best part is you can use LoreFrog for free. So check out my friends at LoreFrog today and revolutionize your campaign notes. Our next starting scenario, breaking down the door, requires far less backstory. This is an opening where the very first thing that happens is the players break down a door. This is something known as an in medias res start, literally translated from Latin as in the middle of the thing. An in medias res start is designed to get the party into the middle of the action immediately. We actually take for granted that the party met in a tavern, the blacksmith ran in and said, "My daughter was kidnapped by goblins, can you go and save her?" And we get right to the point where the player characters are getting into the dungeon and are about to fight the goblins. There are so many reasons to do this start. The first reason is your players get straight into the action. There's no waiting around. You're rolling dice almost immediately. Second reason, the introductions for the player characters are just better in my opinion. Now when a player first takes their turn in combat, they get to describe their character, they get to describe the attack, and they get to show off what their character can do immediately. You're putting name to face to action, which makes that player character stick out even more. And that third reason is that you get to cut down on some unnecessary downtime. You know that moment when the player characters meet each other and there is this awkward lull? No one knows what to do because you don't know your character, much less the other person's character. Well, this opening removes that. Because after the battle is done, you can ask someone, "Hey, that was a cool Eldritch Blast you just used. What was that? What's your deal?" It gives you more to build off of. You've been in the shoes of your character. You've seen the other characters, so it makes it much easier to connect. Instead of helping players with their backstory creation in other openings, with this type of opening, we are helping their roleplay. If you've never tried an in medias res opening, I highly recommend it. But if you don't like the breaking down the door opening, can I interest you in the falling opening? The falling opening is a specific kind of in medias res start, and it is my personal favorite. You go around the table and each player describes their character and what they're doing as they're falling. Then, as the game master, we narrate how they got into this situation. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do, not to initially tell the players how they got to falling. We're in the campaign immediately, the players and their characters are going off instinct, and it's an immediate struggle to survive. Now, of course, the most difficult thing with this method is making sure the PCs don't go splat. Options for making sure they don't die are things like they're falling next to something that they can grab onto, like vines or a cliff, or perhaps below them there is water, a portal, or something else that can break their fall so that they don't die on impact, and the player characters have to navigate themselves to hit that particular spot. Or if one of the player characters can, fly, they can grab the other party members and glide their way down. They might still take some damage because the party is heavy, but it's better than death. And of course, this particular opening, like the last, doesn't have a starting quest because the starting quest is literally survive. But now we're heading out of in medias res openings and we're going to opening number 6, the coronation. This is a ceremony that crowns the next sovereign of a kingdom or land. Coronation openings are great, especially if you're running a political intrigue campaign. You have all the people with political power all in one place for the player characters to meet session 1. Even if you aren't running a political game, there are powerful nobles about who might be trying to curry favor with the new sovereign, and that gives opportunity to the player characters. The starting quest is very simple in this scenario. A powerful noble is looking to hire a few adventurers to resolve problems in their kingdom, or maybe work against the new sovereign, either or, but they're willing to pay good money for their services. Now you've immediately created an NPC that can give the party quests. Or you could create multiple NPCs like this. If you're interested in running a faction campaign, this is a great way to introduce each faction. Have each faction give the party a quest, the party gets to decide which quests they take, or quests, and that will help further the story. The coronation is a natural way to introduce all the big players in your campaign world to the adventurers all at once, and then get the campaign underway. Really, if I'm being honest, this is kind of like a high status version of meeting in a tavern. There's also one final thing that you can do with this opening. have the coronation go wrong in some way. Dragons attack, the sovereign is poisoned, or any one of 100 other things can cause the coronation to go horribly wrong. Then, the players are caught in the middle of an event that changes the outlook of the campaign world. Who could ask for a better opening? Then we have opening 7, Flashbacks. This is a more amorphous start to the campaign, almost a tool in your tool belt, really. You can pair flashbacks with any one of these other opening scenarios. It works with the courtroom start. You're going and you're having a flashback of all the crimes the players committed or did not commit. It works with the coronation start as you're flashing back to the events that got the player characters invited to the coronation. It even works with a regular tavern start. As each person walks into the tavern, you flash back to some point in their backstory. The flashback allows you to dive into the formative events of all the player characters. We get chances to learn about each one of the characters in this way. However, the flashback can also work on its own and it doesn't need to be connected to anything else. If the party already knows each other and is traveling together, the flashbacks can work at the beginning of the campaign. You get to know all the player characters and jump into the action. Basically, you're meeting the characters in medias res as they're traveling the countryside adventuring. Again, this is designed to avoid that awkward start. The player characters are already together and you're primed and set to have your adventures start immediately. However, I would highly advise that you never, ever flash forward, except if you're using starting scenario 8, the alternate future. This starting scenario shows what happens if the party doesn't act, if they don't join together and fight against whatever's coming. Important note here, don't show the villains or any important characters in the flash forward, just the results. You can show NPCs dying, you can show the destruction of countries or even continents, but make sure to keep things flexible. Never show a definite future or what will happen, because then you are literally laying the railroad tracks. You're always going to have to force the campaign to be within these parameters that you set at the very beginning. Or if that future doesn't happen, then you've just created a major plot hole, session 1. Why would you ever do that? The way I like to go about setting up the alternate future is that all the player characters have the same dream one night. In the dream, they see this alternate future, each other, and a pull towards a specific place. This place might be a reclusive noble's manor, a yet-to-be-discovered dungeon, or perhaps even a tavern. Then they all head to this place, meet each other in person, and set off on their mission to prevent this horrible fate. There is one problem though. Even if you have a great start to your campaign, you might not know what to do next. And if that's the case, check out this video right here. It will help to teach you how to go forward and create a great campaign. Also, I offer one-on-one DM coaching on my Patreon, so if you need help, go and sign up over there. And also, thank you for entering the dungeon. Bye.